Hi everybody, welcome to the Limit Breakdown. We're going to start this video off a little differently. We're introducing a brand new segment. It's called the TLDW. Basically, we're going to give a short review of the movie and tell you whether or not it's worth watching. So, to start off, for Morbius, we give it 2 hearts.
2 hearts.
What that means is I'd probably skip this one at the movie theaters. Wait to watch it at home. We're gonna roll right into the review, so stick around if you want to see our in-depth thoughts on this particular movie, and we'll start right after the intro.
Hey guys, welcome to the Limit Breakdown. We're going to be going over Morbius today. I'm going to give you guys a brief synopsis and then roll into our thoughts and opinions on it. On a high level, Morbius about a scientist who has a blood disorder, and he's basically trying to cure him and his friend Milo of this rare genetic disease. In doing so, he hypothesizes that vampire bats is the best option, so he experiments with their blood. Unfortunately, due to comics and anything you do crazy, it turns you into superpowers. So he gets vampire-like powers, and the movie goes off from there about his quarrels about how to deal with said new powers and how to handle them. So if you guys want to watch it, you should check it out when it comes out free on TV. What did you think of the movie, Miguel?
So, initial thoughts on Morbius. I didn't have the highest of hopes for this particular movie. Again, Spider-Man, super fan over here. So, I've always been of the mentality that, especially the type of villain that Morbius is, or anti-hero, if you will, he benefited a lot from the dynamic of having been originally a Spider-Man villain. Mm-hmm. And so presenting him as an anti-hero character with his own original origin story took a lot of the dynamics. Like, the original origin story for Morbius had to do with, yes, him trying to find a cure for his blood disease, but it was also Peter, Spider-Man, trying to show him that there was a different way, because he was originally more inclined to fall into his darker urges. Mm-hmm. And so it was very, there wasn't a whole lot of conflict with him in this one. It was very much, oh, I'm a good guy because the script is requiring me to be a good guy. There was no conflict in that for me. I thought that they had some really good ideas, some really interesting things. Jared Leto was pretty good. I thought Matt Smith was great. But overall, I just think it's kind of another classic Sony thing that they've been doing with these Spider-Man characters, is they're branching them out into their own franchises, when honestly, I hate to say it like this and people might disagree, but I don't think Morbius can carry his own franchise.
Yeah, I agree. So I had very similar feelings. So I disagree on certain parts. I think overall, I agree with what you're saying with the movie. I think the movie itself was average. They did a good job of setting it up, but I feel the ending was very rushed. They didn't really have. There was a lot of holes that didn't make sense, and then the villain's motive didn't make any sense. As far as the cast, you said, I think the cast actually did a great job. I don't think it was any fault of their own. I think it was just bad script writing. But Jared Leto, Matt Smith, everyone did a really good job. Even the cinematography and the CGI was phenomenal. But as an overall, not a fan. Average at best. I disagree with you, however. I think had they done this well, I think Morbius could have been not a franchise, but it could have been a really good movie. If, like a single shot movie, and that's it. I think they could have done a good job. But
well,
they just didn't carry it.
And it's also one of those things, because without jumping ahead too much, um you know, the big setup at the end of the movie for the Sinister Six and everything. And so what I mean by couldn't carry his own franchise is it's they're not even giving him the opportunity to be fully fleshed out as a character without trying to shoehorn in the Sinister Six and everything else. And so it's just kind of what Sony's been doing with these franchises. They did it with the Amazing Spider-Man 2 when they were trying to shoehorn the Sinister Six into the end of that movie. Even, you know, everybody loves the Tobey Maguire films, but not Venom, but Spider-Man 3 was a whole fiasco because of Venom and you know, the fact that they were trying to shoehorn in 3 villains, and so they aren't taking the time to flesh out these characters and these stories the way that they should. I mean, Morbius is a fascinating character. Like, his motivations, when properly illustrated, are great, and he can have the potential of being a dynamic anti-hero. But like we were saying, I mean, and the movie didn't even have a very long runtime. It was what, an hour and 45 minutes,
something like that. It wasn't very long.
Yeah, so it wasn't very long. They wasted no time to get him into the Morbius power situation. That was another thing that I thought was pretty interesting, because, you know, normally, especially with an origin movie, they'll kind of ease you into it 25-30 minutes into the movie is when you finally get it. But no, we were what, 5 minutes into the movie and he's getting swarmed by bats.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So I kind of want to pick this movie apart. Started from the beginning, I think. Overall, for some reason, there's lots of part of this movie that I thought I was watching a Batman movie the whole time. He was surrounded by bats. He, you know, like, creepy. You know, like the movie itself was very dark and dingy, which cinematography wise I think was very clever. But I thought we were watching a Batman movie the whole time. But yeah, like, a lot of the stuff in the movie didn't make sense. For example, I understand him and his friend Milo had a blood disease, and then they grow up. Morbius becomes a well-renowned scientist creating the synthetic blood, and Milo is just rich.
Yeah.
I understand. You know, there was a very short at the very opening of the movie. Milo comes in a Rolls Royce. Clearly, his family has money, but it doesn't really tell you anything.
There was a line, if I remember correctly, it was kind of shoehorned in about Michael's mysterious wealthy benefactor, and I think that's they were trying to address that with that. But like you said, it wasn't ever fully fleshed out or explained.
Yeah.
I thought going into the whole synthetic blood, it's one of those things where I don't know if it was a ratings decision by Sony to try to keep the movie PG-13 so that it wouldn't, because, you know, it's like the whole, I think I made a comment to you about how the bags of synthetic blood had the hose sticking out of it, and they looked like, you know, little sippy hose, like little sun pack or a Capri Sun.
Capri Sun, you're saying?
Yeah.
Like a pack of blood.
And so it was like the most innocuous thing, and so
that's Capri Sun blood.
You know, so it seemed like it was, you know, instead of having them be vampires, it was more palatable from a marketing perspective for them to be drinking this blue synthetic blood instead of actual, you know, and I mean, there was a little bit of blood, but it wasn't what you would expect.
They were trying to base it that he wants to have the synthetic rather than go full-fledged, you know.
Yeah. Which I understood, but like I said, it was one of those decisions that I don't fully. And then the other aspect of, okay, well, if synthetic blood works, why wouldn't animal blood work? Like, if you're against doing human blood, cool. Like, even at the opening scene where he's going to that cave with the bats, there were carcasses. Yeah, the bat cave. There were carcasses of other animals that the bats had been consuming. So it's like, you know. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't saying they should have like a scene, like an interview with a vampire where Louis is chasing chickens, but
yeah, they 100%. He's like, I specifically have admiration for human blood. did you try animal blood? Like it didn't. There was a lot.
Do you
of
like
holes,
bacon?
yeah.
Pig split
Yeah,
is an
like,
option.
there's a lot of holes.
Yeah.
Another thing that as far as casting goes, nothing against the actor, Tyrese Gibson. I don't know why they put him in that movie, and I'm not saying why they put the actor in that movie. I'm saying why they put that character in the movie. There was no reason for that character to be there. They could have just had the other detective be the only detective, and it would have made no difference.
To be honest, until you mentioned Tyrese just now, I forgot that he was in the movie.
Exactly. There was no reason for that character to be in the movie. And then in the middle of the movie, I forgot when it was, they had a nightclub scene where after Milo has been vampirized, and he goes and kills the people in the nightclub, and then the next day the detectives come, and the detective's he's like, oh, imagine you having 36 beers worth.
Yeah,
he's like, actually, imagine you having one beer, alluding to that Tyrese Gibson's character detective doesn't drink.
Yeah,
and then nothing.
Yeah, no follow.
Like no backstory, no follow up, nothing. Like they didn't mention, nothing about that was there. They could have just had the other detective, and the movie would have been exactly the same.
Also, I want to hit on the point of the bait and switch that a lot of the trailers and the previews did from what was actually in the movie. Like the whole little teaser scene where where it's like, who are you? And he's like, I'm Venom. And he goes, no, I'm Dr. Michael Morbius. And but they did the I am Venom thing, but he didn't correct it. Yeah. And then we never saw, like, I saw a trailer where they had the picture of Spider-Man graffitied on the wall, and it had a murderer in graffiti on top of it. But it was over Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and it was supposed to be like an Easter egg for the Daily Bugle on like a bus, and I never saw that in the movie. I don't know if I missed it, but I didn't see anything. Yeah, it just, like I said, it was. I don't want to go as far as saying that it was a bad movie, because it wasn't a bad movie. It just wasn't a good movie.
No, that makes sense. It had a lot. To me, I think it had a lot of potential, but it didn't make it.
Yeah.
Another point that didn't make sense was, as I mentioned, there was no motive for Milo at the end.
Yeah.
Right. So why Now I can come up with a motive in my head, and I can formulate a hypothesis, but in a movie it should be not spelled out, but it should be insinuated, right? Like, hey, this is his motive. I understand that Milo had because of his disease, people picked on him in his entire life, and once he was cured per se, then he's like, well, people are basically mean to me now that I am above them. I can be mean to them. And that's the only motive that I can come up with. But him just killing people left and right for no reason makes no sense.
Yeah, it didn't really register with me either. And even if, because like when he was originally introduced in the beginning, they had that funny interaction, because his name wasn't Milo, it was Lucius. But Michael was just, you're the new Milo. Saying, as all of his friends are dying from this disease. And so him having that connection, you would think that he would be influenced by Michael. He would be influenced by his values. And the fact that they've been friends for all this long time means that to a certain degree they share the same values and principles. You would expect that.
To a certain degree, I agree with you.
Yeah, but it didn't make sense to me how all of a sudden he got these powers. And yeah, I mean, I thought the same thing that you did. Oh, because they showed that scene where the kids, beating the crap out of him and all that stuff. But I would think that it would be at least a little bit better crafted. Like, what if he got these powers, and then instead of immediately just going, ha ha ha, I'm evil now, instead he was put in a situation where he was trying to do the right, the right
Yeah,
thing, and then he
agree.
was forced to do this, and then once he saw, once he fed for the first time, and he saw how much stronger he was after feeding, then he could be like, oh,
Yeah,
I think that would have
100%
been
agree.
that would have been a better approach, but I mean, I absolutely loved the character. I mean, the actor of Matt Smith and his portrayal of Milo. Matt Smith, for those who don't know, is famous for being the 11th Doctor from Doctor Who. But he's one of my wife's favorite doctors. It is the 11th Doctor. I'm remembering.
I've never seen Doctor Who in my life.
Oh my god! Don't let Nicole hear you say that. But anyway, he is a fantastic actor. He has done hero roles. He's done villain roles. He is absolutely fantastic. And the maniacal parts, like when he was in full swing evil vampire mode, he was fun as hell to watch.
Yeah.
He was super entertaining.
Was a New Balance.
Yes.
Shoes. I got the nice suit and everything, and then the shoes, man. It was really fun.
Hey, you gotta be comfortable, man. It's not enough to be swaggy. You gotta be comfortable, I mean, he might have just thrown on the Crocs. Just throw it all away.
But yeah, I think he did a good job. I think Jared Leto did a good job. But I think like you said, a lot of the parts of the movie just didn't make sense, and I don't think, like I said, it was the fault of the cast. It was the script that just did not end well. Another thing that you mentioned was with Milo, when Morbius had his powers, let's just say for a few days to a week, I don't recall the exact time, Milo had his powers for like 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately he's significantly stronger than him. Now, granted, he's been eating human blood, having human blood, so it makes him stronger, which I guess I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the end of the movie, when Milo kills their father figure, the doctor,
Mm-hmm.
and then he kills his Michael Morbius' girlfriend, at this point, Morbius drinks her blood and has vengeance on his mind, and he still can't beat him.
Mm-hmm.
So he pulls a Batman move,
Mm-hmm.
and he calls a bunch of bats to beat him for it. And even then, that entire fight scene also didn't make sense. Right.
And even if they were going to go with the angle of, oh, Morbius isn't stronger than him, this is one of the things that really aggravated me about the movie was I thought they were teeing up the thing with the bats, because like he walked into the little thing with all of the bats, right? And he's like, oh, they've accepted me as one of their own, and da 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 da, and all this and that. And I'm like, okay, so when they were fighting and he calls the bats, I thought, okay, he's gonna try to do the same thing that Morbius did with the bats, and the bats are gonna reject him, and kind of like devour him or whatever. And then they didn't.
They just hit him. They just ran into him. I'm like,
and it's a prime example of what I was talking about. There were some interesting concepts. There were some interesting ideas. It has a lot of potential, but at the end of the day, it got like right close to where it could have been, and then it just stopped.
Yeah, those few things didn't make sense. So while I was thinking about it, there was the father figure for Milo and Michael Morbius, and I saw his death coming a mile away. And I thought I think that scene, that death, was actually very good in the movie. It was needed. However, looking at it from Milo's perspective, it made no sense. Right? Yes, in their little family triad, it's the father figure, Michael, who's the superior, because he got the doctorate. And the other one is just rich. Yeah. And then so he feels he's neglected by the father, and then he kills him. I totally understand that. But then he had no remorse. Yeah. Even if you don't like, suppose you reject that father because he's always cared for you like a burden. I mean, they didn't say it, but if you felt like that, I understand his actions to kill him. But then there should have been some sort of remorse, like, look, he still cared for you. Yeah. Nothing. another part of the script that made no sense for the villain's motive, just killing people left and right.
Yeah, and like I said, it was very entertaining. I thoroughly enjoyed Matt Smith, but yeah, very much Milo after he made the turn became your prototypical mustache twirling evil for the sake of being evil.
Yeah,
and I mean, again, it was entertaining as hell to watch, but it logically it didn't make a whole lot of sense, and that's just really another thing about the movie. It just there's so many aspects that didn't make a whole lot of sense, and it had really good potential. Like I keep saying, it had the possibility to be something else.
Yeah, the ending was definitely rushed. The ending was rushed. Another point I was going to bring up was when the girlfriend dies, Martine, and Morbius finds her, and then he sucks her blood, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna kill Milo. It's very subtle, but she bites his lip, and she draws like a drop of his blood and then drinks it. And at the very end of the movie, she, so we think, turns into a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
My thought process is, from a drop of his blood, he went through all this work to mix, the serum and everything, and he needed a good bottle, and a drop of his blood is gonna turn her. I find that, I mean, I follow movie logic, movie science. Yes, there's a few.
Yeah.
You can pull a few hairs here and there, but certain things that's,
I don't know. Maybe she cut her. She had an open sore or something in her mouth. I don't know. I mean, she is a comic book character. She does turn in the comic books, so it's not like it doesn't have precedent.
So I would imagine, because if you were on the beginning of the movie, he made 3 serums. One he took for himself.
Yeah.
The second, Milo took some. Yeah. There's 1 extra serum. What I was expecting was he was going to take her to the lab, or somebody was going to take her to the lab, or something like that, and then the serum was going to be injected in her. Kind of something
like she's dying, and this is the only way to save her. Type thing. Okay.
I would have been 100% satisfied with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're just like, nah, just bite his lip, get a drop of his blood. It's like lazy writing.
Yeah, I mean, and even that final fight sequence, like you said, it wasn't like him overcoming the fight. I wasn't particularly impressed with the fighting in this one.
Theoretically, he didn't even win.
And honestly, like, I fell asleep through parts of it. Like, I was by the time the movie came and ended, it was a welcome finish.
So wrapping it up, I think them shoehorning the Vulture in there is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Morbius is going to show up in any of the future movies, especially Multiverse of Madness. I just don't know.
So here's the interesting thing with that, right? I think the reason why Vulture was kind of shoehorned in there instead of Morbius. See, because you take a character like Venom, for example, right? He's a big enough character to where Marvel goes, we need him in the MCU. We need a version of Venom in the MCU. I think, and this is just my personal opinion, I think that Marvel got a preview, or maybe saw a preview of Morbius and were like, that's not coming to the MCU. Because it wasn't Morbius going into the MCU, because Venom was transported into the MCU and then transported back.
Yeah.
It was the Vulture showing up in a cell in the Venom verse or Venom universe, however you want to call it. And a lot of things don't make sense to me about that. Where did his suit come from? That was all alien tech from the Battle of Manhattan. So he was in this place for how long? Long enough to make a suit? Where did the tech from the suit come from? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He said, "Oh, I don't know what's going on, but I think it has something to do with Spider-Man." Why?
Yeah.
Why? Because the whole thing with Doctor Strange and the explanation we got in No Way Home was everybody that knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man was getting brought over here. So he knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, but he got sent there. Like there was just way too many holes on that, and I think it was just one of those things where Sony wanted to have some sort of tie to the MCU, and Marvel was like, "You can have this."
So interesting fact. So if you follow, because obviously comics and movies have sometimes vast differentiations. In the comics, as you mentioned, Morbius started off as a Spider-Man villain for the longest. But later on, he actually is changed into more of a Blade villain for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So, and now knowing that after Eternals, we know that now Blade is going to be coming out. So maybe that's the angle they're trying to pull. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
You know, that's just something that they might be trying to do.
Yeah, well, and what is the Black Knight is also very heavy into like the supernatural and stuff like that. So that would kind of shoehorn into the whole Blade situation. So I mean, it's possible. Like I said, it's just as as a general thought, I haven't been thoroughly impressed with Sony's treatment of these Spider-Man characters. The Venom movies were disappointing at best, in my opinion.
They were entertaining.
For what they were, but again, you can't have characters as big as those that were originally Spider-Man antagonists and then not have any Spider-Man involved whatsoever. The last Venom movie, I thoroughly enjoyed. I thought Woody Harrelson was fantastic as Cassius Cletus Cassidy. I was gonna say Cassius Clay, but that's not it. That's not it at all. That's Muhammad Ali. No.
It was an entertaining. I'll give you that. It was entertaining. So.
But again, so I didn't have particularly high hopes going into this movie. Just kind of to reiterate what we talked about in the very beginning. As far as our ranking system, we're using the traditional Zelda rankings. So out of 5 possible hearts, this movie gets a 2 for me.
Solid 2. I'll give it a solid 2 as well.
Yeah, it definitely had potential, but man, potential doesn't write the checks.
Yeah, so. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed our synopsis on Morbius.
Yeah.
Hey guys, it's the Limit Breakdown here. Once we get to our 100 subscribers, we're going to be do a giveaway for this pop figure. So as soon as we get there, we will do random lots and give away. Mix.
So this right here is a special edition GameStop exclusive street art Stan Lee figure. If anybody knows anything about New York culture, Stan Lee was from New York. Graffiti art is very popular. They did a whole line of these with the different Marvel heroes in graffiti style, and so they of course had to have Stan Lee in there. So as a thank you to our viewers and subscribers, once we hit 100 subscribers, we're gonna randomly select one of our subscribers there to be the lucky recipient of it. We'll reach out to you via message, but all you need to do to be able to be eligible is to like the video and hit subscribe button. So we appreciate all of you guys, and thanks everybody for their support.
Thank you.
If you like our videos, please subscribe and hit the like button.